The big meeting room was filled with noise. 12 different alien races sat in their special chairs, all talking at once. The room was made of crystal that sparkled in the light. It was the most important place in the galaxy, where all the big decisions were made. At the center of all this noise sat 5 humans. They looked small compared to some of the aliens around them. The leader was Jihoon Park, a man in his 50s with gray hair and calm eyes. He wore a simple black suit that looked plain next to the colorful robes and armor of the other delegates. Next to him sat Nari Kim, a woman with short hair who kept looking around the room with sharp eyes. She was watching everyone, making notes on a small device. On Jihoon's other side was Woo Jin Lee, a man with scars on his hands and a serious face. He used to be a soldier before he became a diplomat. Behind them sat 2 more humans. Hana Choi was the youngest of the group, maybe 30 years old. She studied aliens for a living and knew more about their biology than most aliens knew about themselves. Next to her was Sumi Yoon, who worked with communications and made sure everyone could understand each other. The humans had been coming to these meetings for 3 years now. It all started when humanity began to spread out to new worlds. They found empty planets and built cities on them. They found rocks floating in space that were full of valuable metals and started mining them. Everything seemed fine at first, but then the aliens said the humans were breaking old rules. These rules were written down thousands of years ago, before humans even knew there were other planets with life on them. The rules said who could live where and who could take what from space. The aliens called it the border disputes, but humans knew it was really about something else. The aliens were scared. Humans were good at building things, fixing things, and making new things. In just 15 years, humans had become important in ways that made some aliens nervous. The Vorthak were the most angry about it. They looked like giant bugs with 6 eyes and hard shells. Their leader stood up now, all 6 eyes looking down at the humans. When he spoke, his voice came out like grinding metal. "Humans will leave all the disputed star systems," he said. "You have 1 day to agree. You will also accept limits on your technology. You will let us watch over your new colonies. If you do not agree, we will attack you." The translation machines worked quickly, turning his words into human language. But Jihoon understood the meaning even before the translation finished. This was not a request. It was a threat. Around the room, other aliens nodded their agreement. The Kelrani, who looked like octopuses but walked on land, waved their tentacles in approval. The Zelani, tall and thin with blue skin, clicked their approval in their musical language. Even the peaceful Corvin, who rarely took sides, seemed to support the ultimatum. Jihoon looked at the numbers on his tablet. 847 ships. That was how many warships the aliens had gathered together. It was the biggest war fleet anyone had ever seen. Each ship was huge, with weapons that could destroy entire cities from space. Humans had maybe 50 ships that could fight in space. Most of them were designed for exploring, not fighting. Against 847 alien warships, humanity would not last long in a straight fight. But Jihoon was not worried. He looked calm as he stood up to respond. The room became quiet, waiting to hear humanity surrender. "We understand your position," Jihoon said. His voice was steady and clear. "This is a serious matter that needs careful thought. We asked for 24 hours to discuss this among ourselves." Some aliens made angry noises. 24 hours was not long, but they wanted an answer right away. The Vorthak leader's eyes flashed with annoyance. "You have 1 day," the Vorthak said. "When you return tomorrow, you will accept our terms." "There is no other choice." Jihoon nodded politely. "We understand. Until tomorrow." The human delegation stood up together and walked out of the crystal chamber. They moved slowly, without hurry or fear. Other delegates watched them go, already planning how to divide up the human worlds once humanity surrendered. But as the humans walked through the long corridors of the council building, Nari Kim smiled for the first time that day. She had been counting things during the meeting. Not just ships and weapons, but other things too. "Did you see how many of them needed human translators to understand each other?" she whispered to Jihoon. Woo Jin Lee nodded. "And look at the lights," he said quietly. "Human-made power systems in half the stations here." Hana Choi was thinking about something else. "The Kelrani delegation looked sick," she said. "Probably the liver disease that's been spreading through their colonies. Only human doctors know how to treat it." As they reached their ship, Sumi Yoon was already sending coded messages back to Earth. Not surrender messages, but activation codes. For 15 years, humans had been preparing for this day, not preparing to fight, but preparing to leave. The galaxy thought they were forcing humanity to make a choice between surrender and destruction, but humanity had already made their choice long ago. They had just been waiting for the right moment to use it. Tomorrow, the aliens would get their answer, but it would not be the answer they expected. Back on Earth, President Yunahan received the message from the delegation. She looked out her window at the night sky, where thousands of human ships were already moving into position, not attack positions, but departure positions. The galaxy wanted humanity to choose between submission and war, but there was a third option that the aliens had never considered. Humanity could simply walk away. The next day came quickly. The crystal chamber was packed with even more aliens than before. News of the human ultimatum had spread across the galaxy overnight. Everyone wanted to see humanity give up and accept their place as a small, controlled species. The Vorthak leader sat in his chair, all 6 eyes gleaming with satisfaction. He had already planned how to divide the human colonies among his allies. The Kelrani delegation made quiet clicking sounds that meant they were happy. Even the usually neutral species had picked sides, believing that humanity would have to surrender. When the human delegation entered the chamber, they looked exactly the same as the day before. Jehun Park wore the same simple black suit. Narikim carried the same small tablet. Wu Jinli had the same serious expression. Nothing about them suggested defeat or fear. The chamber became completely silent as Jehun stood up. Every alien leaned forward to hear humanity's surrender. Some had already prepared celebration feasts for later that day. Honored delegates, Jehun began, his voice carrying clearly through the room. Humanity has carefully thought about your offer. The word offer made some aliens uncomfortable. It had not been an offer. It had been a demand. But they waited to hear the important words. We accept, or we surrender. Instead, Jehun said something that no one expected. We refuse. For a moment, nobody moved. The translation machines worked frantically to make sure every species understood correctly. The word refuse appeared on screens in dozens of alien languages. The meaning was clear in all of them. Then the chamber exploded with noise. Aliens roared, screeched, and made angry sounds in their native languages. The Vorthak leader stood so quickly that his chair fell over. His translator could barely keep up with his rapid threats and curses. But Jehun was not finished talking. He waited for the noise to die down, then continued speaking. Also, starting right now, humanity is leaving the Galactic Council. We are leaving the Trade Consortium. We are ending the medical exchange program. We are canceling all technology sharing agreements. Now the aliens began to look worried instead of just angry. These programs were important to many species. But surely the humans were just making empty threats. Dayun Quan stood up next to Jehun. She was humanity's expert on money and trade. She looked down at her tablet and began reading from it. All jump gates operated by humans will shut down in 1 week, she said. All human doctors will return from alien worlds. All technology licenses given to alien species are canceled and... She paused, looking around the room at the suddenly nervous faces. All infrastructure built or maintained by humans will be shut down and taken back. The room became very quiet as aliens began to understand what this meant. For the first time, some delegates looked genuinely afraid. The Kelrani ambassador's tentacles stopped moving completely. The Zalani delegation began talking quickly among themselves in their musical language. Even the Vorthak leader's eyes stopped glowing with anger and started showing something that might have been concern. Hana Choi stood up next. As the xenobiologist, she knew exactly how dependent each species had become on human science and medicine. The cancer treatment program that saved 2 billion Zalani lives will end, she said calmly. The neural repair technology that cured Corvin paralysis will be withdrawn. The genetic therapy that prevented 3 species extinctions will no longer be available. With each sentence, another alien delegation began to look sick. They were starting to remember all the things humans had quietly been doing to help the galaxy function. Sumi Yoon was the next to speak. Her job was communications, and she knew something that would terrify them even more. The Universal Translation Network will shut down at the end of this meeting, she said. All human communication relays will go dark. The quantum entanglement network that allows instant messages across the galaxy will be disconnected. The chamber erupted again, but this time with panic instead of anger. Without the human translation network, many species could not even talk to each other. The Galactic Council itself could not function. Finally, Tae-Hyun-an spoke. He was the quiet engineer who had said nothing during any previous meetings. Most aliens had forgotten he was even there. "You have 48 hours to remove your people from human-built stations," he said in a soft voice that somehow carried to every corner of the chamber. "After that, we cannot promise their safety during our reclamation operations." The word reclamation sent a chill through the room. The aliens were beginning to realize that humans had built more than they remembered. The power systems, the life support, the computer networks, the transportation hubs. How much of galactic civilization was actually human-made? The Vorthak leader tried to regain control. "You cannot do this," he shouted. "You are only one species. We are 12. Ji-hoon looked at him with something that might have been pity. "You are correct," he said. "You are 12 species who have just declared war on the one species that has been keeping your civilization running. We wish you the best of luck with that." The human delegation turned and walked toward the exit. They moved slowly without panic or anger. They looked like people who had just finished a boring business meeting, not people who had just rejected the demands of the most powerful military force in galactic history. As they reached the door, Woo Jin-lee turned back one last time. "Oh," he said, as if he had just remembered something unimportant. "The combined fleet you assembled to threaten us, most of those ships are refueled at human-operated stations. You might want to send them home quickly before they run out of fuel in space." Then the humans were gone, leaving behind a chamber full of aliens who were just beginning to understand the magnitude of their mistake. The Kelrani ambassador was the first to speak after the humans left. His translator made his words sound even more worried than they probably were in his original language. "How much of our technology is actually human-built?" he asked. Nobody answered because nobody wanted to find out. The first sign of trouble came 6 hours after the humans left the council chamber. Dr. Min-ho Song, head of the Human Colonial Medical Corps, sent his final report to every medical database in the galaxy. Then he shut down all human medical networks. The report was short but devastating. It listed every medical breakthrough that humans had shared with alien species over the past 15 years. The list was longer than anyone had realized. 73% of all medical procedures used by alien doctors had been developed or improved by humans. The revolutionary cancer treatments that had saved billions of Zilani lives. Human research. The neural regeneration that had ended paralysis for the Corvin people. Human innovation. The genetic therapies that had saved 3 different species from extinction. All human work. But the report also contained something worse. It listed ongoing medical emergencies across alien worlds that only human doctors knew how to handle. Without human medical support, millions of aliens would die within months. Dr. Song's final message was simple. All human medical personnel are returning to Earth immediately. We wish you well. On the industrial world of Cathara Prime, engineer Soyeon Jung was overseeing the shutdown of the planet's main manufacturing center. The facility was enormous, covering hundreds of square kilometers. It produced 34% of all advanced computer processors in the galaxy. The alien workers watched in confusion as human engineers moved through the facility, shutting down machines and removing key components. They had always assumed the factory was a joint project between humans and Kelrani. Now they discovered that humans had designed, built, and maintained everything important. "What are you doing?" asked the Kelrani supervisor, his tentacles waving in distress. "The production quotas for next month are no longer our concern," Soyeon replied calmly. She pulled a small device from her pocket and pressed a button. Throughout the facility, machines began powering down in sequence. This factory was built under a technology-sharing agreement. That agreement has been terminated, but you cannot just leave, the supervisor protested. "We do not know how to operate the quantum fabricators." Soyeon looked at him with genuine surprise. In 15 years, no one thought to learn. As the last human transport lifted off from Cathara Prime, the entire manufacturing complex went dark. Similar scenes were happening on dozens of worlds across the galaxy. The jump gate network was failing faster than anyone had expected. These gates allowed ships to travel instantly between star systems, making galactic trade and communication possible. Everyone had assumed they were built by many species working together. The truth was different. Captain Yunho Bae, commanding the cargo ship Seoul's Pride, transmitted the final human merchant broadcast. All human commercial vessels are returning to Terran space immediately. Current shipping contracts are terminated with full refund. This network will now go silent. As each jump gate shut down, a message appeared in the local area. This facility was designed, built, and maintained by Terran Engineering Consortium. License expired. Thank you for your cooperation. The Galactic Council called emergency session after emergency session, but they faced a new problem. Without human communication networks, the different species could barely talk to each other. The elegant translation system that had made interspecies cooperation possible was entirely human-built. The Vorthak leader tried to coordinate a response, but his messages to other species were coming out as gibberish. The Kelrani tried to send technical data about their failing systems, but it arrived as random noise. The peaceful Corvin could not even ask for help because no one could understand their language anymore. Ambassador Jihoon Park sent one final diplomatic message before the human networks shut down completely. It was addressed to all species, translated perfectly into every known language. Humanity thanks the Galactic Council for making our decision clear. For 15 years we tried to be good partners. We shared our medical knowledge freely. We built infrastructure for the common good. We solved problems and prevented conflicts. In return, you demanded our submission. The message continued. We understand that you see us as a threat because we are different. We build where others only take. We solve problems where others only create them. We work together where others only compete. Perhaps you are right to fear these differences, but we will not submit to fear, and we will not change who we are to make others comfortable. So we choose a third path. We choose to leave. The message ended with coordinates, not for surrender, but for evacuation routes. Any alien personnel currently in human space had 72 hours to leave safely. On the Vorthak homeworld, the power grid began failing. The fusion reactors that powered their cities had been designed by humans. Chief Engineer Naeun Kim had been the only human willing to work with the Vorthak, despite their hostility. Her departure left them with technology they could not understand or repair. The Vorthak military command tried to organize their combined fleet for an immediate attack on human space, but they discovered new problems. The supply depots that refueled their ships were human-built. The maintenance facilities that repaired their weapons were human-operated. The navigation computers that guided them through space used human software. Admiral Kyungmin Yu of the Terran Navy sent a brief message to the combined fleet commanders. Any vessels requiring emergency assistance may request aid through standard diplomatic channels. We bear no ill will toward individual spacers, regardless of their government's decisions. It was a masterfully diplomatic message that made the human position even more terrifying. They were not acting out of anger or revenge. They were simply withdrawing their cooperation, and the galaxy was collapsing without it. The medical crisis grew worse by the hour. On the pleasure world of Risa Quintus, a simple virus outbreak that should have been contained in minutes spread across 3 continents. The containment protocols were human-designed. The treatments were human-developed. The monitoring systems were human-built. Without human medical support, what should have been a minor inconvenience became a planetary emergency. The Zelani Republic tried to activate their emergency medical systems, only to discover that these too were human-designed. Their backup plans relied on human technology. Even their medical training programs were based on human research. For the first time in their history, the galaxy's most advanced civilizations were helpless. 2 weeks after humanity's withdrawal, the galaxy was falling apart faster than anyone had thought possible. The Vorthak Confederation, which had been the loudest voice demanding human submission, was now facing complete collapse. Their industrial worlds were going dark one by one as the fusion reactors failed. These reactors had been running perfectly for years. But without Chief Engineer Naeun Kim and her human technical team, no one knew how to fix even small problems. The Vorthak engineers tried to restart the failed reactors, but they did not understand the human-designed control systems. Every attempt made things worse. What had started as minor maintenance issues became major disasters. Entire cities lost power, and the Vorthak had no way to restore it. Their military, once so confident with 800 ships, was discovering that those ships were useless without supplies. The fuel depots were human-built. The repair stations used human tools. Even the food replicators on their warships relied on human-designed protein synthesis technology. Admiral Kyungmin, you watched from the bridge of the human dreadnought Incheon as the combined fleet slowly broke apart. Ships limped back toward their home systems, dealing with system failures and supply shortages that they had never experienced before. Some ships did not make it home at all. Without human maintenance protocols, critical systems failed in deep space. The humans rescued the crews when asked, following strict humanitarian protocols, but they did not repair the ships. Distress signal from Vorthak cruiser Dominant Fang, reported the communications officer. Engine failure, 47 crew members. Send a rescue ship, Admiral Yu ordered. Bring the crew to safety but leave the vessel. This became a common pattern. Human ships rescued alien crews but did not help with military equipment. It was exactly what humans had promised. Aid for individuals but no support for the governments that had threatened them. The medical crisis was getting much worse. On the Kelrani homeworld, hospitals were overflowing with patients suffering from diseases that human doctors had been quietly treating for years. The liver disease that was spreading through Kelrani colonies had seemed under control, but that was only because human physicians had been providing regular treatments. Dr. Heejin Park, in her final medical report, had listed 17 ongoing health emergencies across alien worlds. Without human intervention, the death toll was climbing rapidly. The Zelani Republic lost 60,000 citizens in the first week alone. The neural disease that attacked their nervous systems had been completely eliminated by human gene therapy. But without ongoing human medical support, the disease came back stronger than ever. Even worse was the growing realization of what humans had been quietly preventing all along. Security Chief Hyunwoo Lim released humanity's final intelligence report before the surveillance network shut down. The report was terrifying in its scope. Humans had prevented 17 major wars through quiet diplomatic intervention. They had detected and stopped 43 ecological disasters before they could spread. They had been tracking a dangerous energy anomaly from the galactic core that could threaten all life in the galaxy. Most frightening of all, humans had been quietly managing asteroid threats, solar flare predictions, and cosmic radiation dangers that could kill entire planets. Without human monitoring systems, these threats would go undetected until it was too late. The Corvin Collective, always the most peaceful species, was the first to try to make contact with humanity. Their homeworld was experiencing cascade failures in their life support systems. The environmental controls that made their planet habitable were all based on human atmospheric engineering. Their message to Earth was desperate. We made no demands on humanity. We supported no ultimatum. Please, our children are dying. We need help. Foreign Minister Yoonji. O responded personally, but her answer was not what the Corvin had hoped for. Humanity appreciates your peaceful history with us. However, we are currently focused on internal development and are not seeking external partnerships at this time. We wish you well. The response was polite but firm. More importantly, it established a pattern. Humanity was not angry or seeking revenge. They were simply not interested in helping anymore. This indifference was somehow more terrifying than any threat would have been. The Kelrani hegemony, once proud of their advanced mathematics and complex technology, had lost 60% of their computational capacity. Their society was built around quantum calculations that required processors too complex for them to build or maintain. They tried to recreate human quantum technology but failed completely. In desperation, they sent increasingly valuable offers to Earth. Rare metals, cultural artifacts, even territorial concessions. All were politely declined. The Zelani Republic was facing the evacuation of entire colonial systems as life support failed on dozens of worlds. The elegant environmental controls that had made hostile planets habitable were all human innovations. Without human engineers, these colonies were becoming uninhabitable death traps. President Yoon Hun finally responded to the flood of desperate messages from across the galaxy. Her speech was broadcast on all remaining functional networks. 15 years ago, humanity joined galactic civilization with hope and excitement. We shared our knowledge freely. We offered our help generously. We worked to build a better future for all species. She paused, and the camera showed the massive construction projects visible around Earth. New shipyards, defensive platforms, and what looked like an entirely different type of space travel technology. In return, you demanded our submission. You threatened our destruction. You gathered the largest war fleet in galactic history to force our compliance. This taught us an important lesson about the nature of galactic civilization. Another pause, longer this time. Humanity has learned that lesson well. We thank you for the education. We will apply what we have learned as we build our own future. The message ended with images of human space, sealed behind the most advanced defensive grid ever constructed, busy with new construction projects, completely self-sufficient and apparently unconcerned with galactic affairs. The most terrifying part was what the message did not contain. No threats of retaliation, no demands for apology, no conditions for return, just polite indifference and a clear message that humanity had moved on. 6 months after humanity's withdrawal, the galaxy that had once demanded human submission was begging for their return. The Vorthak Confederation no longer existed as a unified government. Their planets had broken into small groups, each struggling to survive with failing technology they could not repair. The proud species that had led the ultimatum against humanity was now scattered and helpless. Their former prime minister sent his final message to Earth before the last Vorthak communication relay died. It was not the angry demand it might have been 6 months earlier. Instead, it was a broken plea. We were wrong.
Please help us.
Our children are dying in the dark. The message received the same polite response that all such requests had gotten. Humanity appreciates your interest in renewed cooperation. We are currently focused on internal development and are not seeking external partnerships at this time. The Kelrani hegemony had suffered even worse losses. Their entire civilization had been built around complex mathematical calculations that required quantum processors. Without these computers, they could not navigate space, could not predict weather, could not even calculate simple trade exchanges. They had tried desperately to rebuild the human technology, but 15 years of dependence had left them unable to understand even the basic principles. Their greatest scientists worked day and night but could not recreate what human engineers had built almost casually. The Kelrani ambassador, his tentacles trembling with desperation, had tried to reach Earth 17 times. Each message offered more than the last. Their entire treasury, their sacred mathematical texts, even their homeworld itself. All received the same polite but final response. The Zelani Republic was facing extinction. 2/3 of their colonial populations had died when life support systems failed. Their homeworld was overcrowded with refugees, but even there the infrastructure was breaking down. The beautiful cities that had once been the pride of their civilization were becoming ruins. Most tragic of all was the loss of their children. The genetic disease that had once threatened their species with extinction had returned. Human gene therapy had completely eliminated it, but without ongoing treatment, it was killing Zelani children faster than ever before. Their leaders had abandoned all pride and sent increasingly desperate messages to Earth. They offered to become a human colony, to give up their independence completely, anything to save their people. But humanity was not interested in ruling other species. They simply wanted to be left alone. The medical crisis had spread to every corner of the galaxy. Species that had never had human doctors were discovering that their traditional medicine was centuries behind human innovations. Diseases that had been eliminated were returning. New plagues spread unchecked because the monitoring systems were gone. Dr. Min Ho Song's final medical report had been more accurate than anyone wanted to admit. Without human medical science, the galactic population was dropping by millions every month. But perhaps most terrifying was what humanity had revealed in their final intelligence briefings. The threats that humans had been quietly monitoring and preventing were now running unchecked across the galaxy. The energy anomaly from the galactic core was growing stronger. Human deep space monitors had been tracking it for years, predicting when and where it would become dangerous. Without those monitors, no one knew if it was about to destroy entire star systems. Asteroid impacts that humans had been quietly preventing were now hitting populated worlds. Solar flare warnings that had saved countless lives were no longer being issued. Cosmic radiation surges that could sterilize planets went undetected. Security Chief Hyunwoo Lim's final report had listed all of this, but it also contained something even more disturbing. The 17 major wars that humanity had prevented through quiet diplomacy were now starting to happen. Without human mediators, Old conflicts were erupting into violence. Species that had lived in peace for decades were fighting over resources they could no longer extract or process without human help. The galaxy was not just falling apart technologically, it was tearing itself apart socially. The Corvin Collective, despite their peaceful nature, was being attacked by desperate neighbors who wanted their remaining functional technology. The gentle species that had never known war was learning about violence the hard way. Even neutral species that had not supported the ultimatum against humanity were suffering. The Talaxian Trade Federation had lost 90% of their commerce when the Jumpgate network failed. The Andorian Research Consortium could not continue their studies without human computational support. These species sent careful, respectful messages to Earth, acknowledging that they had not opposed humanity but also had not supported them. The responses were always the same: polite thanks for their past cooperation, but no interest in resuming relationships. Admiral Jamin Kang stood on the bridge of the Incheon, watching long-range sensors show the continuing collapse of galactic civilization. The combined fleet that had once threatened humanity was now completely scattered. Most of the ships had been abandoned in space when their crews could no longer maintain them. "Admiral," his communications officer reported, "we're receiving another distress call from the Vorthax sector. 300 survivors on a failing space station. Send a rescue ship," Admiral Kang ordered, as he had dozens of times before. Standard humanitarian protocols. This had become humanity's only interaction with the galaxy, rescuing individuals in distress while ignoring all government communications. They saved alien lives but did not save alien civilizations. The final message came from an unexpected source. A group of young aliens from different species, mostly scientists and engineers who had worked with humans before the withdrawal. They sent a simple personal message that bypassed all official channels. "We understand why you left. We know we cannot undo what our governments did. But please know that some of us learned from you. Some of us remember what it means to cooperate instead of compete. If you ever decide that the galaxy is worth saving again, we will be here trying to build something better." This message was different from all the others. It was not a plea for help or an offer of tribute. It was simply an acknowledgement of what had been lost and a small hope for what might someday be rebuilt. President Yuna Han read the message personally. For the first time in months, she allowed herself a small smile, but her response was the same as all the others. "Humanity appreciates your message. We are currently focused on internal development. The galaxy had demanded that humanity choose between submission and war. Instead, humanity had chosen indifference. And as the galaxy collapsed around them, they were learning that indifference was the most terrifying choice of all. Humanity was not coming back as conquerors. They were not coming back as saviors. They might not be coming back at all. And that possibility kept the galaxy awake at night, watching their civilizations crumble while humanity built something new behind their impenetrable defenses, something that had no place for the species that had driven them away. The greatest punishment humanity could inflict was not destruction. It was being forgotten.